And we're live. Hopefully you'll manage to keep your faces straight for long enough. Cool. So this is our first meeting since last year. When was the last one we did? Time we did meetings? Middle of December, wasn't it? If I think back, it's quite a while ago.
Mm-hmm.
So we held off doing these sorts of meetings for a couple of weeks and just sort of kept up with the progress meetings because Christmas time, New Year, it's always really, really quiet. There's never much going on. There's no point making huge plans that you're never going to keep up with. So it's just easier to go progress style and let people pop in and pop out other than doing these slightly heavier duty meetings. So as it says, or as shown in our sprint epic, we have been working over the last few weeks on a couple of changes to the helpers in Theme API. Done quite a few fixes. The sprint epic has fixes that we wanted for 0.7.3. We've done 0.7.4 and 0.7.5 since I opened the sprint epic, so it's kind of out of date now. But we've pushed loads of bug fixes. We've seen in the last few weeks sort of much more regularity, I suppose, of people coming to the GitHub repository or to Slack or to Ghost support, the Ghost Pro support, and reporting what are small bugs, edge cases often, or sometimes slightly hairier things, which are generally they're small in the fact that they don't take much to fix, and so we've gotten better at just sort of punting through those as quickly as possible when we get them raised, just get them fixed up straight away, which I think is a trend to keep up. Let's just sort of keep squashing the bugs and not let them hang around the repository for too long. What was really nice over Christmas and New Year and the last 2 weeks has been that I've been taken to sort of reporting those bugs properly, regardless of where they come from, or making sure that they are fully reported and labelled as bugs. And we've actually seen quite an influx of contributors coming in and fixing bugs. I think I got hardly any of the last release was me fixing bugs. It was all other people, and that's great. That's really, really useful, because the more bugs that are fixed by other people, the more time I have and Kevin has and Sebastian has to spend on hardcore big feature development projects. So that's great. I hope that trend continues as well. I'm not going to go back through and ask people how the sprint's gone, because we know it's just basically been a mess for the last few weeks. We've just been sort of working on little projects away in the background whenever we've had time, all mostly with a view to starting a new sprint with some more ideas of what we wanted to do. And we've also been doing quite a lot of planning behind the scenes, trying to decide which features are the ones that we need to focus on first and foremost this year. So, and we also were having a look back at 2015 and seeing that we had, at the beginning of the year, a really clear focus on what features we wanted to build. I had a roadmap, like a 0.6 roadmap, and then a 0.7 roadmap of features we wanted to build, like tag management, that all got done. And that at the moment we don't have that sort of level of detail of what it is that we're going to be working on. So we're working back up towards having that level of detail of planning again. For the short term, for the first 2 weeks, there are, I think, 3 features or 3 projects that are going to be ongoing, and I think if I read them out, they're going to be pretty exciting. So the 3 things that we're going to be working on for the next 2 weeks, and in no way are we committing to having these done in 2 weeks. They're just going to be the ongoing projects. They're going to get either demos built, specs written, or they'll be completed depending on where they are. First thing will be to complete or get the demo of the new editor to a point where it can kind of be presented and properly discussed. At the moment, it's still just sort of a work in progress, getting the demo good enough to even show what it can do. Alongside that, I'm working on writing up a full explanation of what we see as being the problems with the current editor, and how we want to, or what we want to do to fix them, and then how this demo shows that we have fixed those problems, or how this demo could be extended to fix the problems. I suppose just to go into it very briefly, there are 3 or 4 key top-level problems with the editor that we are focusing on. We've got a document here somewhere. So there's obviously quite a lot of bugs open. There's 15 or 16 bugs open in the repository that have been open for a long time that are all bugs with the Markdown parser itself, which could be resolved by upgrading our Markdown parser from being the sort of dogged fork of Showdown from before Showdown became active again to being Showdown, or we could switch over to using Common Mark. There's a lot of solutions to that particular problem. But Markdown itself is buggy and limited. And when you get to the edges of Markdown, when you get past sort of bolding and italicing and the standard stuff that comes with Markdown towards things which are, I'd say, common and then less common extensions, like there's pretty common extensions for tables. There are some less common extensions for layouts and other things. It starts to become difficult, tricky to see what formats you should support, what you shouldn't. And for a tool like Ghost that wants to stay lightweight, it makes much more sense to make an extensible editor that other people can pick and choose what they want to support, rather than us having sort of a very broad and extensive category of things that we support in our editor. It just doesn't make sense in the way that we work. So what we want to do is we want to move towards an editor which is extensible, so that people can add or create a way to add the features that they want for their specific editor. And when you think about the different types of sort of blogs or publications that might be used, or Ghost might be used for, you've got everything from your early adopting developer who wants to write lots of code snippets, down to Sky News, who is a full-blown editorial organization who are focusing more heavily on embedding videos and images and writing long-form content, who will probably never need to see a code snippet in their life. So there are lots of different ways that you would want to use Ghost, and we want to better support that broad range. And a couple of other of the issues that we have with the editor. One is we have never, ever implemented scroll syncing properly between the two panes. And in fact, when we started Ghost 3 years ago, the split screen Markdown editor movement, things like Moo, Ghost, and Stack Edit, and lots of other things popped up, and it looked like it was going to be the way forward. In the last few months, we've seen much more focus around one-pane WYSIWYG editors which support Markdown, more like Quip or Draftin. I think editorially was one, Dropbox Paper. There's loads of them out there. So we're starting to see a completely new approach, a more modern approach to editors, which is kind of superseding the old split screen view. And the other problem with split screen is that by having two versions of your content on the screen, you are taking up enormous amounts of screen real estate that could be used for something way more useful, like collaborative editing tools, more image upload tools, all that sort of stuff. We're losing masses of screen real estate because we're duplicating basically what the user's content on the screen. So there are a number of big problems that sort of lead us towards investigating WYSIWYG style editors again, which is why the spike that Kevin has been working on is with MobileDoc, which is a editor building framework. It integrates neatly with Ember, is supposed to be used with Ember, and has basic Markdown support, but also has the ability to develop cards or sort of blocks of content which you can basically build up functionality however you want into those cards. So anything from very advanced image uploading tools to a full-blown version of our existing editor inside a card. So there's a lot of scope for playing around with that, and so that's part of what we're going to be doing for the next 2 weeks, is just testing the edges of that to see where that goes and whether that really does solve the problems that we think it will, and also to get the work done of sort of publishing exactly what it is that we think the problems with the current editor are, to sort of make that a bit clearer. So that's item 1 on the list. Item 2 on our list of things for the next 2 weeks is something that I'm really, really excited about, and that is post scheduling. This is a feature that we have long avoided and ignored for many, many technical reasons. And it's by far and away the most wished for Ghost feature. If you look at ideas.ghost.org and look at the wish list, it is been for a very long time the top item. And when you consider that the second item is apps, which essentially means all the things I can't do right now, the fact that post scheduling is so high up, oh actually it's third, but okay, image optimization is first. I thought it was third. It was first, never mind. Anyway, it's very high up on the list, and I kind of discount apps from that list because it means everything I can't do right now. And the image optimization thing that is on that list is going to be looked at as part of rethinking the editor, because one of the biggest limitations right now is the fact that our existing editor doesn't really have a nice way to interact with it to do better image management tooling anyway. So item 2, post scheduling. I'm going to be writing a spec for how that's going to work over the next 2 weeks, and I think at the very minimum the UI work will probably be roughly ready for it or started in the next 2 weeks, because it's going to be quite a simple interface to start with. We're just going to create a way to schedule something in the future, nothing more complicated than that. It's a minor UI thing and a massive back-end thing, but get the spec rolling on that. And the third thing will be finishing up the hashtags feature that we started work on just before the break, which is a sort of version of tags which are internal only and you don't really see them on your blog, and using that to create structures and workflows and all sorts of things like that. So those are the 3 things that are sort of on the radar at the moment. And a lot of it is going to be Kevin. But yeah, it's pretty exciting. To back this up, or to further explain what we're doing at the moment, I have started updating the roadmap, which I'll link to now. And I wanted to just quickly talk through the items that are on there. Here we go, roadmap. So at the moment, the in progress column is pretty heavy. Hashtags is on there in development. Customized channels is in there. It's in development. There's a lot of progress going on towards refactoring Ghost to make that work, but it's going to be an in progress item for quite a long time, I think. At the bottom of the list, we have the localization stuff, which is marked as both in development and stalled, because I think the pull request that's about ready to be merged unblocks a lot of stuff on the back end, but I'm not sure where we are on getting any further work on that done, whether there's anyone around at the moment that's interested in that. And the key thing about the I-18N project, or the localization internationalization project, is it is community-led. It's not something that I or Kevin work on, largely because both of us are English-speaking people in GMT, so we're not really best placed for checking whether these features work, and that's much better done by somebody who understands these problems. But yeah, be rallying some troops, I think, trying to see if we can find someone to pick up the work once we've got that pull request merged. And I think it's just a case of merging it now and fixing it up so that we don't get it blocked. Just try not to block the project, even though I'm not actively working on it myself. And then also on that list, you'll see the editor overhaul, open public API stuff, and post scheduling are all marked as in spec design phases. So hoping to move those 3 projects forward into actively being in development, or considered actively in development in the next 2 weeks. So basically moving things along the columns and moving them through the progress meter of stages from being in design to in development and moving towards ready. Hashtag should hopefully be ready. I'm not sure whether it will have been released. And then I suppose the other thing to cover is releases. As I said, since we opened the last Sprint Epic, we've done 3 releases. We've done 7.3, 7.4, and 7.5. And we are committing to keeping that release cycle down to about 2 weeks as much as possible over the next year, and reducing it further if we possibly can by implementing things like upgrading tools into Ghost so that it's easier for people to upgrade and therefore not really annoying if we release every 10 minutes. So I think the goal is towards the end of the year to be getting towards a daily, if not more than daily, release cycle on Ghost. That's a pretty ambitious goal. I think that's all the things that are worth talking about. So yeah, there'll be another release in the next 2 to 3 weeks again. We'll be putting stuff in labs like hashtags, the editor, whatever we can, and not opening up to being out of labs until it's ready. So, Kevin, would you like to talk a little bit more about where you are with the editor?
Yeah, sure. The editor, as it is at the moment, is basically just a straightforward implementation of what mobile.kit offers as a kind of drop-in component. And over the next couple of weeks, I'll be looking to kind of expand on that, create a markdown card so that we can start experimenting with how we can migrate existing content and things. So if you user switches, the new editor on, they can still edit old content and things like that. And yeah, it's mostly just discovery at the moment. I'm trying to work out what's possible, what's not, what's easy, what's difficult, and give us a better idea of how to move forward with it.
Very cool. And do you have a goal for where you want to be by the end of the 2 weeks?
The goal is essentially to have the Markdown editor working in some form and to have a start on the UI which lets you insert different cards in different places. Yeah, hopefully with the Markdown editor card, it should give us some idea of how we can open it up a bit to allow users to insert their own cards as like an extension system.
Cool.
What does card refer to in this case?
So a card could be anything. So if you've ever used something like, say, Squarespace or something where you have like blocks of content, so you could insert an image or something, but a card is a little bit more involved in that. So you'd see the rendered content. If you clicked on it, it would open up a customized editor. So you could have an editor which is specifically for building slideshows or inserting a particular type of UI. Or one thing that I want to work on eventually is having a proper code editor inside of Ghost for working on code snippets and things like that.
Cool. Sounds good.
Yep, so the cards are, the default card in MobileDoc is just a standard editorial card where you can type and you can bold and italicize things, underline them, add lists, and Markdown format is loosely supported in those. So if you start typing Markdown, it knows what you mean, and it will automatically on the fly convert your Markdown into actual visibly bold text or visibly italic text. And the support for that at the moment is somewhat minimal because MobileDoc is very, very new, but something that they are very keen on expanding, and we're very keen on expanding. We still want to keep as much of that the sort of sane bits of Markdown which writers really depend on, where you want to be able to type on the fly and just get, with keyboard shortcuts, just get the most basic formatting done without having to think about it. We don't want to detract from that. But it's not going to be a case of if you start doing really complex Markdown tables, then it's probably never going to work in the main basic card. But what you would do then is you would drag in a Markdown card and put your complicated Markdown in a proper Markdown card, and then for your Markdown table or whatever sort of you want to do, and then perhaps you could drag in a MathJax card or a code snippet card, or more importantly for the editorial flow, an image gallery card where you want to upload multiple images in one go and have them all lay out really nicely.
Cool.
So that's kind of the idea. What's quite interesting about the card system is that because of the way it works and the flexibility of it, you can, as I said earlier, you can basically imagine having a card, a Markdown card, which is the existing editor. So if you don't really like the new editor, you want to stick to the old one, you could almost have your own card which just does the old editor. And one of the nice things about where we're going with this is the idea of sort of setting up templates, defaults, and things like that. So it might be that the basic editorial card is the default by default, but for you as a user, you could set it to be the code snippet card by default. And then moving forward, this is not obviously out of the box functionality, this is where we're going long term. Moving forward, setting up templates where you could say, okay, my standard format for a post is I have some explanation and then a code snippet. So I have 2 cards by default. That's my template for my code posts. And then you can open up the editor with all those cards already set up. So multiple templates, defaults for different users, all those sorts of things become possible, which makes it highly customizable and configurable to sort of suit your needs rather than it having to be a single default for everyone. So that's what we're experimenting with, to see where the boundaries are and what is and isn't possible and what does and doesn't work. I think that about explains it. So I've written down, because I'm trying to write the sort of sprint epic issue as we go, I've written down the new editor demo, working in labs and allowing users to edit old and new content as one bullet point. I've got adding and removing cards, and then experimenting with ways for users to add custom cards. So not expecting that to be working, but maybe start some experimentation.
Yeah, I think it'll be having an implementation of an existing card and being able to look at that and see what the options are, rather than experimenting too much with it.
Cool. Okay. Feel free to rename that bullet point to make something more sense. So hashtags. Data migration and first working version in labs, and then the last thing is post scheduling, and that's going to be a spec basically. I don't know if we'll get much further past that. Yeah. Right. Okay. Cool. So that's kind of where we're going for the next 2 weeks. My stuff on that is basically the specs for post scheduling and the data migration for hashtags. I think we've got enough of the hashtags functionality already waiting in pull requests. So once I get the data migration in, we can just merge it and do a couple of other amends just to get it out as a first version. And post scheduling, like I said, just going to be specs for now, and maybe some experimentation with different ways to do things. But other than that, it won't be actually in progress, I don't think, by the end of these 2 weeks. So that's the plan. I think there's going to be a lot more planning of plans done in the next 2 weeks as well, for a longer term idea of what we're going to be doing for more of this year. At the moment, it's basically all hinging on the demo of the editor. We kind of want to see what we can and can't do. And then once we know what we can and can't do, we're going to plan all the sort of features around cards, as I said, including image sort of tooling, the kind of like automatically optimizing images when we upload them, having different sized images, all that sort of stuff. We want to figure out how we're going to implement that. And there's lots of stuff that needs to change in Ghost itself to be able to handle that as well. So they're all quite big long-term projects, but what we're hoping to do is do small amounts of progress on them so that you can see it growing as we do it, as well as planning them. Cool, I think that's all I've got to say. Anyone else want to talk about anything?
Did you want to mention that we're going to be merging all of the outstanding issues?
Yes. Basically, as soon as I hang up from this call, I want to merge the huge server-side string pull request, and then open an issue to get the actual install part of that fixed up. And then I'm also going to merge all the outstanding Ember pull requests that Kevin has open, and as much other stuff as I can get done. Halfdan that you've got, or Fabian, I don't know why I call you Halfdan. So weird.
That's fine.
I also respond to Eris. It's also fine. No, you've got tons of pull requests open. They're all failing for some weird reason. I think Travis is having a bit of a bad day, but try and get those passing and merged as well, and get the pull request list back down to a sensible number.
Cool.
And so that will be happening. And I think there are some dependencies that need updating, all sort of like beginning of a release cycle stuff that we like to do early as possible. Get all that done. Yeah, I think that's probably enough for this week.
I'm happy to look at some of that stuff, especially taking some of the work off of Kevin for the post scheduling stuff. Like there's smaller things, maybe even a bigger thing I could work on. I'd be happy to do that.
Cool. And I have still got your comment like logged as a to-do item to expand on some of the migration stuff a bit more.
Right. Yeah. Cool.
It's not been neglected. I just haven't gotten to it today.
Yeah. I figured.
Yeah. But yes, as part of there's some really simple data migration stuff that needs to happen to get some of the features like hashtags and the editor out there. But there's also like just some. It just needs, the whole system's just never had any love. Just needs a bit of tidying. So there's nothing really concrete, just some ideas I've got about which bits can be improved and cleaned up quite easily, and some minor changes that will help us. I'm still umming and ahhing about switching to Connects Migrate. I raised an issue about that like over a year ago, I think, and it got no feedback. But I'm still thinking we probably want to switch. Hi, Matt.
Oh my god.
Who knew he was alive?
He isn't climbing, he isn't in the mountains, he's not skiing. What's happening?
He's in a room and he's got clothes on. It's amazing.
Oh, there are people with him. Oh my god.
Right. Well, we were just about to finish.
Bye.
I think you missed it. No, I tell you what, I'm going to post this sprint epic now and put a link in the Slack channel whilst we're here. And I will close the old sprint epic as well. And I think we're pretty much done. Like, we're all organised. We know what we're doing.
Cool.
Yeah. Cool. And yeah, great. All right. Matt, did you have anything you want to talk about, seeing as you popped up? No, just showing your face. It was appreciated. It's a very glib look. Just trying to get back in things. Okay. Cool. All right. Yeah, I'll end this for this week. 2 weeks' time, we'll revisit and probably have some slightly more concrete goals, I hope, towards for the next 2 weeks. But it's all a process of planning and investigation at the moment. But yay. Cool. Thanks for coming, guys.
Thank you.
Cheers.
No, but really, thanks for coming, Matt. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.